Hey everyone, welcome back to the new series of tutorials on Seaborn. Seaborn is a very interesting library that helps us to make more informative plots in Python. So I am excited to make a new series of tutorials on Seaborn, and I'm going to try to couple them with the Matplotlib equivalent. So if you've been following my channel, I have a series of Matplotlib tutorials that are being published every Tuesday, and now I am coupling the Seaborn equivalent to that specific function. I'm here on the Seaborn official webpage. Seaborn is a statistical data visualization tool for Python. Seaborn is a Python data visualization library based on Matplotlib. So the core is based on Matplotlib. It provides a high-level interface for drawing attractive and informative statistical graphics. As time goes by, as data scientists, we are trying to cram a higher amount of information into one plot because of so many reasons: lack of time, so much interest, so much data, and so forth. What I will do today, I'm going to start with RELPLOT, or Relational Plot. An interesting page from Seaborn webpage is the overview of Seaborn plotting functions. I'm not going to really go into that for now. We'll come back to this later. But I would like to get your attention on this graph. Looking at this graph, I want you to remember something. Seaborn functionality is flat, but the functionality within each top level is accessible through a hierarchical order. I'm going to run you through what does that mean. Today I'm going to be talking about RELPLOT, which is also called relational plots, comprising of scatter plots and line plots. So if you've been following my series, you will remember that whenever we talked about scatter plots and line plots, we said that we are trying to understand the relation between an x variable and a y variable. A very simple example would be, does age matter in how much you're getting paid? You want to understand, is there a relationship between the age and how much money you make? So then you make a scatter plot or a line plot, and if they follow a linear trend, you can say, yes, as you grow older, you make more money. In Seaborn, we can simply summarize scatter plots and line plots inside a RELPLOT function. So we don't really need to go down the path of saying, I want a scatter plot or I want a line plot. We can just say, I want a rel plot and the kind is a scatter, or the kind is line plot. Simply start with the top level, specify what kind of plot you want, and that's it. Let's get started and see how this looks. Before we go ahead, I would really appreciate if you like the video and subscribe to my channel. It will help my channel grow significantly. Like every other library in Python, before we are able to use it, we need to install it. So if you're using the pip package manager, you just say pip install Seaborn. Or if you're using the conda, you just go conda install Seaborn. If you want to check if you have Seaborn installed on your machine, open a Jupyter notebook and say import Seaborn, run that. And if it is installed, you should be able to see the version. So Seaborn ..:version . If you can see a version popping up, you have Seaborn installed on your machine. Otherwise, if it is not installed, just go pip install Seaborn, and that will install it for you. So it's not going to do anything for me because it says requirement already satisfied, because Seaborn is already installed on my machine. So I'm going to go ahead and delete these and delete this. So let's say import Seaborn as SNS, import NumPy as NP. I'm not sure if I'm going to use NumPy, but just for the sake of convenience, from Matplotlib import pyplot as plt. I have all three libraries imported. I'm going to go ahead and make a very simple scatter plot first. The great thing about Seaborn library is that it has some built-in data sets for you to use, so you don't really need to make your own data or have your own data. If you have your own data, brilliant. But if you just want to use some dummy data from Seaborn, you can easily access using the function load_dataset. So I'm going to use the tips dataset. So this is some data, how much tip workers get in restaurants based on how much money people spend on products, and if they're a male or if they're a female, and so forth. So let's look at the dataset. So the dataset is still inside the Seaborn package. So SNS load dataset, and I want tips to be loaded. If I look at the tips dataset head, which shows me the top 5 rows, I can see that there is the total bill, the amount of tip, the sex of the people who tipped, are they smoker or not, what day it was, what meal it was, and the size of people who probably dined in that restaurant. I like to make my figure based on my preferences. I'm going to use Matplotlib figure and set the size to 7 and 7. And then I'm going to use Seaborn to plot a scatter plot. Number one, you got to say what data you are using. I'm using the tips data because that's what I named it here. And then you gotta say what is the X variable. So what do you want on the X axis? I probably want the total bill. So because there is a column called total bill here, and I'm gonna use total bill on the X axis. And I want to use the tip on the Y axis. I want to see if there is a relationship between the two. And for the kind of plot, I want a scatter plot. Very, very simply, I can see the scatter plot. So I have the total bill, I have the tip, and you can see that it's not like Matplotlib that I have to go and set the X label. It automatically says, okay, this is the total bill, this is the tip, and I didn't do any of that. Seaborn is smart and does that automatically. If I wanted to get a line plot, I'll just say I want a line, and that will give me a line plot. Well, it's not really helping here, but I just wanted to show you that you can easily change it to a line plot. So you don't need to change the name of the function. So let's change it back to scatter because scatter is more useful. Now let's look at some of the parameters that we can change on this function. So I'm here on the official webpage for RELPLOT. We did set the data, we did set the X and Y. We can set the hue. Hue is essentially the color of different categories. If you remember, in this data, we have both female and male people. Let's just move the kind to the next line and add a hue of sex. So I want different colors for males and different colors for females. You will see that I am getting the male community in blue and the female community in orange. And just looking at it very briefly, I can see that the male spend bigger amount of money proportionally and also tip higher than females. The other interesting thing is that it does add the legend automatically. I didn't add any legend. I have just one line of code and that does everything, which is really cool. Let's look at other parameters. So we did the hue. You can also set the size. You can change the size of these markers based on some variable. I'm gonna try and set the size to be the total bill. Let's have a look. So size also equals total bill. This is not very smart now, but I just want to show you what it looks like. So you can see that the size of these markers changes based on how much money did people spend. Here, people didn't spend much on food, so they're smaller markers, but as the total bill goes higher, they are bigger circles. I don't think this is really smart because we already have total bill on the x-axis anyways. I'm not adding any new dimension of information to this plot. But what if I changed the size of these markers to the size of people who ate in that restaurant? For example, here there were 2 people, 3 people. We want to understand if there were more people dining as a group, did they pay a higher amount of tip or not? So I'm just going to change this to size. The size of these circles are based on the number of people who were dining that ranges from 1 to 6. I can see that here the number of people who were dining were small, around 2 people. There is a bigger one, this is like a 3. This is also like a 3. This looks like a 4 probably. I think this looks like 2 people that spent a lot of money and they tipped really high. So I can't really see any relationship between the size of people who dined in and how much money they spent on tipping the person. How about looking at the different meals? So let's understand if people tipped more if they were eating lunch or dinner. I'm going to change the color from male and female to time, which is lunch or dinner. So lunch is in blue and dinner is in orange. So it seems that there were more people in this data that they were having dinner. That's to begin with. And I can see the trend to be pretty much the same, but I can separate these. I can make more plots to give me more information if I wanted to, because now I am having so many dimensions there. Sex, if it is dinner or lunch, and how many people were dining in. You can see that in one plot, you can squeeze only as much. There is not like millions of dimensions you can add to a plot. Okay, I'll show you how to make several plots from there. I can also change the color to day. So let's say, do people tip more on a Sunday, on a Saturday, on a Monday? So now I have changed it. I'm going to get rid of the size because it's not really adding any information. I can see that when people dine on Saturday, which is the green one, they spend more money and they tip higher amount, which is really cool, something to remember. As I mentioned before, there is only as much information you can squeeze into one plot. What if I wanted to look at days, so Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, but I want to separate lunch from dinner? I want to be able to see that dimension as well. How do I do that? That is very easy with Seaborn. You don't need to make subplots and add more functionality to that. No, you just need to say, I want to set my parameter column equal to time and put a comma. If I run this, I will automatically get two subplots, which is really cool. The first one is for lunch, different days, so Thursdays and Fridays. So these people only ate on Thursdays and Fridays. And this one is only for dinner. Now I have separated those two groups. So really quickly, I can see that there were more people who ate dinner compared to lunch, and there were higher amount of tip that they paid to the people in the restaurant. So is it only the column that I can set? No, you can set the row to be the sex. So what I want to make now, I want to have 4 subplots. So this one is for males eating lunch. This one is for male eating dinner. This one is for females eating lunch. And this one is for females eating dinner. And that's just one line of code, which is really cool from Seaborn. So let's do a quick analysis. So male eating lunch, the maximum is around 35-ish. Females eating lunch, the maximum amount they spent was like 43, but the tip in the male community seems just to be a bit higher. I think males are a bit more generous in this data set, in this specific data set. Male eating dinner, again, they are ordered, the maximum amount of tip they have is $10, but females eating dinner, the maximum is around $7. Again, males in this data set are a bit more generous. Could I change the kind to line? Of course I could, but it's not going to be really nice. I don't think for this data you want to use a line plot. So let's go back to a scatter plot. I could summarize these two rows into one row by changing the type of marker. So instead of saying, I want the rows to be different sex, I can add the style and I say, I want you to change the style of markers based on the sex. I'm going to get only 2 plots, one for lunch, one for dinner, and males will have circles, females will have a cross. So this will help me to visualize things sitting on each other, which makes it really easy to comprehend. I'm going to repeat what I said in the beginning of this video. So RELPLOT, or the relational plot, is a top-level plotting function that scatterplot and line plot are in underneath that function. I really advise you to use RELPLOT as the top level, but if you really insist on using the scatterplot, I'm just going to show you, if I run the same code, I'm going to get errors because that's not the syntax for them. So if I run this, I'm not going to get it. And it says, okay, you cannot set the column variable. I'm just going to go ahead, get rid of the column variable, run it again, another error. You can't set the kind because kind is already scatterplot. So delete that, run it again, and you will see that I can only get one plot. I am plotting total bill on the x-axis, tip on the y-axis, based on the day. I've got the legend here, and the style of the markers is the sex. If I want to change this to line plot, I can go to line plot. You normally use line plot for objects that are kind of related. However, in case of having dinner or lunch with different customers, there are more discrete data. So they're not like, there isn't like a linear relationship, but everyone is different in how much they tip, when they come and when they leave. Let's go back to scatter plot, and this is going to be the scatter plot and how that looks. Okay, that's it for this lecture. I hope you enjoyed it and hope to see you in the next lecture. If you like this video, hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. I have heaps of content coming your way. Thank you.